Psychologist Podcast. I'm Dr. Tara Quincherillo, and today I have with me a really interesting guest. I have Coach Chrissie Henson, who is a therapist, an author, an entrepreneur, and podcaster, as well as being a coach. But you're also an author as well. Would you like to say a little hello and tell us a little bit more about what's brought you on today?
Hi, lovely to be here today. So I just came on today just to have a conversation with you about how people with disabilities are accessing mental health support at the minute.
Yes, so important.
Because I feel like it's a really important at the moment, particularly with everything that's going on in the world. And it's actually surprised me the other day when I was looking at what Labour were going to do for mental health, and they're very quick to come up with they're going to put a therapist in every school, which I think is amazing. But then it just leads you to the question of what about the rest of society that are not at school?
And particularly adults with disabilities as well, and fair access, having that right to access. And we know at the moment it's a difficult time, isn't it? So NHS services are saturated, waiting lists are long. Private therapists, private counsellors like myself, we're doing our best, but obviously people need to pay to come to see us or use health insurance, for example. And one of the things that really caught my eye when we first connected on LinkedIn, wasn't it? Good old LinkedIn. Is that you are really interested in trying to break down some of those barriers of people being able to access therapy if they don't have the means to pay for that privately. So we've got so much to cover. Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable telling us a little bit about your story? So with your background and becoming a therapist.
Okay. So for me, now looking back, I almost feel like I've been trained to be a therapist my whole life.
Really?
I've actually got a disability called cerebral palsy, which happened to me at birth. My birth was complicated and resulted in me becoming disabled with cerebral palsy. And obviously, being a child in the 70s with a disability, I was first of all sent to special needs schools about the age of 8-9 years old, and then I went into mainstream school, which was such a massive. It was a massive change because in special needs school you only had like 10-11 people in the class, where in mainstream school you went to 30-35. So that was like a massive change. I was also then put in the classroom with my twin sister, and it was all of a sudden I went from the identity of being me on my own to being the twin sister, which I found really hard to get my head around as well. And I did get bullied quite a lot at uni school because of my disability. The other kids found it easy to push you over and pull your hair and pick on you like kids do. But I feel like I was such a strong character that I kind of just got on with that and just sailed through school quite easily as well. Things got harder, and this is the difference between being in school and being an adult living with a disability. Things got a lot harder at the point of leaving education, because back then I wanted to be a nurse and work with kids under 5. And straight away I got the attitude of nobody's going to employ you.
Right. So already there's barriers, that discrimination.
But I just it was my dream. So I went to college and got my qualifications, and then just luckily for me, that was when Diversity was a little bit different. You were allowed to say, we only want to employ people with disabilities for this one job. Yes. And that luckily is how I got my first job.
Okay.
Was through the local council. There was incidents of like disability discrimination within that job where people were mimicking my speech, and that was a horrible thing to be in work, putting up with people ignoring you because they just didn't understand you. That was quite hard. But
imagine,
from that, and that was like when I was in my 20s, so we're talking 30 years ago now. And other than that, I don't really feel that about a lot of discrimination at work just because of the person I am. Okay. And I just like get on with the people. So it's more about it's feeling like you've always got to give more. You've always got to be head and shoulders above everyone else just to be noticed. Yeah. And that's a bit that can be hard. So even when recently, like last year when I brought my book out, I obviously did go to the charities that are there for people with disabilities. Yes. Because I thought it was something they could relate to. But even then it was kind of hard because everyone was starting to assume I'm just a therapist for people with disabilities, or my book is just for people with disabilities. I'm just a regular counsellor like yourself, and I can work with most people, most problems. It just happens to be that I've got cerebral palsy as well.
So that's so interesting. There's just that misconception then that because you have a disability that you are only working with people with disabilities. And as you say, as therapists, counsellors, psychologists, we work with people across the lifespan, don't we? Adults, children, sometimes we might specialise in certain areas. But that's so interesting. And even actually when writing your book, there's something about people actually hearing you, taking the time to hear, well, what is your book about? So let's give you that space then. Let us know. What is your book about? Tell us a little bit about what made you write it.
My book is called A Look Inside the Therapy Room. And what I've done is I wanted to take away the fear and taboo that therapists are going to brainwash you, or the fact that we have all the answers or a magic wand.
And that's why I love it. I love it. It's a great book.
Split the book into 3 different sections. So the first one, I do share a lot more about the beginning of my life, my story, and how I got to where I am today. I do that in a way of I wanted to be inspirational. That's the whole reason for me wanting to get out there, because so many people, not just disabled, but minority groups, which the top know and they just think knows the answer they've got to take, and it isn't. You can just go, you can say no, but I'm going to go and do it anyway, which is what I do. And that's the main message I want to go. Some people call it stubbornness, I call it determination.
I like that. I'll take both. So that's me in a nutshell as well. Yeah.
Yes. That's the message I wanted to give out. And then the second part is as simple as I just answer the questions that most people ask. When they're looking for a therapist and they're not really sure what we actually do. So things like, what do we talk about?
I'm glad you addressed that. Yeah.
Just in that, what is therapy? What do I do in the room? What do I do? What's my responsibility outside of the room? So it's just really, and the language I use is so straightforward that there's none of the therapist jargon in there, because I just wanted it to.
I love that.
be
really
accessible to as many people. And then luckily for me, the last 5 chapters are more. I'll give you the 5 titles. So there's one about young adults and therapy. There's one about disability and therapy, suicide, bereavement and loss, rejection, and then there's one about men and therapy as well, because I think that gets overlooked a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazingly for each of those chapters, some of my previous clients collaborated with me and let me share little bits of their stories about what they brought to thinking. And that's that. It isn't a self-help book. It doesn't go, they came with this, we did this, therefore they did. It's not that. What I want the reader to get from it is to be able to relate to it and go, okay, that worked for them, what can I do for me? Even if
it's about getting people,
not necessarily for everyone to pick up.
Yeah. And what I love as well, because you've targeted so many groups there, haven't you? You know, the male mental health, the mental health crisis at the moment in younger people, teens, you know, early adulthood, and just trying to, and also because my background, trying to develop cognitive behavioural therapy for people with learning disabilities over the last 20-25 years, making it accessible. And there's so many myths about what therapy is and what it isn't. It's all in one book. I can't wait to read it. Actually, I need to work my way through it properly. It's a fantastic book. And did you find it? Because what I really love as well is that you've got that section in the beginning, that lived experience, as well. This isn't just coming from theory and research; it's also coming from a place of lived experience, which I imagine actually, when you bring that into the therapy room, that's quite special.
It is, because even though my lived experience is from having a disability, even that other people can have the same thing, that older people can work with older people that are facing discrimination at work. You can work with young people that feel rejected or have that social anxiety, and it's lovely because it's had that unspoken understanding that they just get from you straight away.
So, because off the back of this podcast, one of the other things I try and do is help people understand a little bit more about how therapy works, but also who's qualified, who isn't. So this fits and aligns with so many of my values and my background in working with people with disabilities. So I was so pleased, and you agreed to come on, because this isn't just about your book. You live and breathe this. This is what you bring to your work, and you also, because you know, you're described as an entrepreneur, and you absolutely, that is you in a nutshell, isn't it? That you are trying to bring these concepts back out to people as well, in terms of how do we get people to be able to access this, because there might be people that read your book and go, that's me, I need, you know, I have things I want to work on, but there may be barriers to me being able to access that as well. So should we bring in a little bit about your work, because I absolutely love this, it's so important, about trying to gain funding for free therapy for people with disabilities. Is that something you can tell us a little bit more about?
I set up Counseling with Chrissie back in 2018. And my dream was to get funding to be able to say, I can offer X amount of sessions free of charge if you meet certain criteria, like if you have a certain disability and whatever. And that was my dream. But the amount of barriers that are out there, like, as simple as people that are self-employed cannot just apply for funding. You have to go via a disability charity. And then it's so that kind of was my dream of what I wanted to do. And even like now, when there's a lot of talk about helping disabled people get some benefits back into work. And for me, it isn't that black and white. There are mental barriers.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There are mental
and it's so important to name that.
Why yeah. There were mental barriers, like with me, the fact that I was discriminated because of my disability at work is one of the biggest reasons why I now work for myself, because I don't trust organisations to do it properly anymore. So one of the other areas I really would love to get into is being part of this idea of helping people with disabilities get back into work, but as well as physically helping them, giving the mental health support that they need as well. Because anybody can find you a job, anyone can give you a job, but if you've not got the right support, you're not going to stay in it.
Absolutely. I don't know how you have time to do all this. We'll have to bring that in at some point, that you must have like an extra 20 hours in each day. So not only are you providing the therapy and running a practice as well, which we were just talking before we hit record, weren't we? There's so much to do behind the scenes when you're running a private therapy practice, but you're also doing work to support people to get back into work, which is just incredible, while trying to also still work to get funding for people. There's a lot involved there, isn't there? A lot involved. And what we're also hoping, we're going to do a shameless plug, aren't we? If there's anybody that listens to this podcast who can help you in any way or wants to have a conversation with you about helping, or is in a position to offer funding, whatever that may look like, or introduce you to people that can, please either contact me or contact Chrissie through the show notes, and we'll make sure you get put in touch with each other, because it's so important. And there may be someone listening who can help in some way, or at least signpost you to someone else who can help, because I just think it's such on so many levels so worthwhile.
And on that note as well, one of the other things that I do which I really enjoy is I go along and give out talks and that about self-love and self-care and mental health and things, and even my book, if anybody wants to invite me along to speak more about my work and my book, please do get in contact.
Absolutely. And are there any kind of target groups that you like to speak to? So in terms of speaking things you've done before, because I think that's again, I have time to do all of this. It's amazing.
Yeah, for me, what I've done, I moved up to a little village a couple of years ago, and that's why the idea of the book came around, because I was just looking, I was in a brand new area, and I thought, I want a different way to get myself out there, because being a therapist on the counseling directions, you're very little fish in a very, very big pond, aren't you? So that
absolutely, that will resonate with so many of my colleagues. Yeah, really are. A bit vulnerable at times, if that's right to say as well.
Yeah. So I just thought, how can I do it differently? And that's why I wrote the book. And then on the back of the book, I was able to go out and go, I've written this book. Would you like me to come and speak to your group? So we in our area, we've got a charity called Hospice Hope, and they run like support cafes for people elderly, disabled, life-limiting illnesses. And they were amazing because they allowed me to go around to all their support cafes. And they're in all the different villages.
Wow.
So there's 4 or 5 of them. And I've been around and given a talk to them. And it's just word of mouth. And then those people speak to other people who then ask you to come along. And it just really happened like that.
And that people need to hear that message, don't they? But also it's continuing to help break down those barriers by having you come speak as someone with lived experience as well, which I think is so important.
The dream for me is for somebody in the audience to have had that message of you can't do that or you're not capable, and see me and go, well, she's done it, so I can do it. That's the overall dream for me, is to inspire people to go, you know what, who's got the right to tell us no?
Absolutely. Such a good point. That would actually make quite a good title for another book, wouldn't it? You know, disability rights, advocating, being assertive, dispelling myths, removing stigma barriers. And that's what this podcast is about, right? It's about overcoming stuff that life gives us. What have we got within us to help cope? And it's interesting you brought in self-care just then as well, because I'm thinking with everything that you do, and obviously as a therapist, we will promote self-care and people looking out for each other and not burning out. What do you do then? What do you bring in for yourself to help you cope? Because obviously you're dealing with a lot, you're working a lot across different plate spinning, isn't it? You're a bit like me.
Yeah. I do a lot for myself in different ways. So I've got my dog who also works as a therapy dog.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, spending time with him because he's only 3, so he's still at that puppy age. So when he goes to there, and I like being silly, so we can be silly together.
Absolutely.
So that's one of my favourite things to do, is to be silly with him. I also am part of the local choir, so once a week I go off and I sing. And everyone knows that music is really good for your mental health.
So good.
Absolutely. Also meeting up with friends for either dog walks or just going out for meals, going to the theatre, pictures, all kind of stuff like that. And then on the physical side, I do have like regular complementary treatments like Reiki and reflexology and stuff like that, just to
stuff that's kind of for you
on top form as well.
So things are kind of looking after your physiological needs, again, psychological.
That's it. And it's always monitoring the workload as well. So like if I feel like I'm getting a bit too tired, I will reduce the number of clients I see that for a couple of weeks, and just making sure that you don't hit, because we talked earlier about burnout as well, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Making sure we don't get there.
So, you know, when we talk about self-care and therapy, we tend to look at that as ideally as a preventative thing to try and prevent kind of overwhelm and burnout. And in our industry, we're at high risk of that because also of what we're absorbing and hearing from the people that we work with as well. So some people might think it's not so labor intensive because we sit down and we listen to people, but there's a lot that goes along with that, and we have to be very good with our own mental health, don't we? Yes, absolutely. And mirroring that for people, that there's absolutely no point if we're telling the people we work with to do these things if we're not doing them ourselves. And you know, we're all human, and maybe times where we let it slip, but it's trying to catch it and, you know, bring it back in again. What have you found so far? What has the feedback been around your book?
I've got 13 5-star reviews on Amazon.
Fantastic.
So to me, and it's only been on there about 18 months, so that feels quite good to me.
I'm sure it does. It does. And what are people, is there anything particular that's resonating with people?
It's different regarding the people reading it, because obviously everyone is reading it for their individual reasons. Some people buy it because they know me, but then they're like, oh my God. And then that one person read it, she said, oh, I thought you'd only been a therapist for a couple of months. I can't believe how much you've done. So it's like, it was like that side of it, and you got other people that are like, oh my God, I can
people
really
have learned stuff about you then that they didn't that they didn't know, right? That kind of, and because what I was really interested in,
and then there's other people that like.
you go. We just crossed over then with the internet.
There's
a slight delay, isn't there, on the internet?
There's other people that are saying that like they've read a particular like character story or client story that has gone, I feel like I was reading my own life.
That's what I was
quite powerful.
Yeah, I imagine
that's quite powerful. Yeah, because some of the subjects that in the chapter about bereavement, suicidal thoughts, and loss, that is actually a poem in there about somebody that was committing suicide. And that's quite a powerful
the heavy side of
to read.
But at the moment, it's so important to be addressing that. But I'm just thinking as well, somebody who's kind of thinking about therapy, or maybe people reading it who want to support someone they know to access, and learning more about it themselves. Maybe if you're supporting a partner, a spouse, friend, colleague at work, whatever that be, is that there is something I think very interesting about seeing, well, what are the actual people who've experienced it said? Because we can listen to a therapist and they can explain, and that's fantastic. But I love the fact that you also have that lived experience, not just your own, but also from other people, and that they felt safe enough to share that with you, for it to go in a book, which says an awful lot, I think, as a fellow therapist about you. That kind of, that they have felt safe enough.
It was quite humbling. Yeah. And that was quite humbling, because it wasn't just one or two. I think there's about six people still, like, lived experiences been shared. So there's quite a lot from all different areas. And one, going back to what you just said about the people that might find it beneficial, I always think of the other side of it as well. For me, I would have loved to read something like this when I just started my training, because there's all the academic. There's all the books about
all the
jargon means like that, but there isn't a lot that. But for me, you can actually feel yourself sat in the room, where there is
almost like palpable, right? Yes,
yeah.
That kind of, we can read, like you say, in textbooks. It's not the same as reading that lived experience of what is actually happening in that room. What can it look like? It's quite powerful stuff, right? Yeah.
What did that client actually come for? Particularly the chapter about the men and therapy. That's quite a hard read, because I deliberately picked up on a subject that isn't really written about a lot, and that is about male rape, male coercive behaviour. And it's like being able to share a little bit of the background of Billy's, the name that all of the clients were allowed to choose the name that they're represented by in the book, so it isn't their actual names. So the person that in the book is called Billy. He's like, his storyline is actually quite powerful, and it's one that is actually used in some of the soap operas as well. He works with the soap operas to help them tell the stories in the right way. So his story was actually used in a soap a couple of years ago, and that for me is like really powerful, that not only to share it in the book with me, but it's also allowed. And it just shows how sometimes sharing your own experiences can really, really benefit other people as well.
And also, the person who's telling the story will get something from that by sharing, often sharing your story, thinking how many people you can help with that. But obviously, sometimes the process in itself, just being cathartic, can be a really useful thing as well. So actually, it's a nice thing for people to do. They're giving to others, they're getting things back from that. And I just think that's amazing. Where can people find your book though? We must make sure we get that in. So people are there go, right, okay, so where do I find it?
The paperback and Kindle is available on Amazon. There is also an audio version. I think it's on most of the downloading things like Spotify and places like that.
Yes.
All the normal ones.
I'll make sure we've got these in the show notes. Yes.
Or if you do invite me along to give you a talk, I do come with some books that I'm more than happy to sign and give away, sign, and people can buy them as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So anyone listening who wants to get hold of you for that, remind me afterwards, because I've got a possible contact for that for you as well. Don't let me forget. Because I think people need to hear you. They need to hear you speak. And anything we can do to get you out there to doing that is absolutely fantastic.
I know. I quite cheekily put my website address on the screen, which is Counseling Chrissie.
Fantastic.
.co.uk.
Easy. Go find it. So counselingwithchrissie.co.uk. Nice and easy. Yeah, there it is. Over. And we'll make sure as well, everything, all of your social media, website, where to find the book will be in the show notes. And for this podcast, the show notes stay live, so we can update them with whatever you're doing as well, which is great, because people are more likely, and we always say this, don't we, to click on a link that's already there than to go type it in to the internet. So that's why I like to have the live show notes with the links. So anybody who's listening on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, whatever you're listening on, you just click the show notes, and if you're watching us on YouTube, the show notes are all underneath these videos, so you can go straight there and have a look as well. Where do you hang out on socials? Where can people find you if they want to hear more about what you're up to? Because there's that entrepreneur bit of you. You do so much stuff, don't you? Where do you hang out on socials?
I'm on mainly LinkedIn for the professionals.
Yes,
like yourself, and I do have counselling with Chrissie pages on Instagram and Facebook.
I don't think I found you on Instagram. I'm gonna have to I'll come find you later. Don't know why I haven't managed to find you on Instagram yet. I seem to miss people. I must do a little recce and go find people. One of the things that I always think is really, really important is, if someone's listening now and they are struggling to get access, is there anything that people themselves can do to help you in your course, as well as people that might be interested in investing and funding? Is there anything people can do to help you just spread the word of what you want to do, so people with lived experience who might find it hard or historically found it hard to access therapy, whether there's anything there that could be useful for you? It's just something that popped into my head.
Contact me like we did right at the beginning. We just messaged each other and said, should we have a chat? Because I really believe if two people have a chat for half an hour, both of you walk away with something.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I love to do. So anybody that wants to contact me, anybody who just has a question, again, if you look on the website, you can fill in the form to say contact me there, so they can do it that way as well. Because not everyone wants to talk face to face on, the hours of work. Not everyone's got time to, by all means, get in contact with me, and
we don't want to miss out on
see where
value. Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to miss out on valued conversation. I quite often will just message people, because if I'm on the go or if I'm outside of working hours or whatever, I'm with the kids, or we don't want to miss out on this. We want to start conversations, basically, which is what we did. And as you say, I love that. If you hear your messaging for half an hour, you've got something, right? And then here we are. And hopefully many more conversations after. Yeah. And the other thing as well, if it's all right to say, you've had a lot happening in your life recently as well. So I really appreciate that you have made time to come on this podcast, because I know, when you've got a lot of stuff on and when you've been through some big life events, that's a lot, right? And you need to look after yourself. But I so appreciate the time. I always ask every guest, if there was one, we've had so many nuggets, but if there was one little adversity takeaway, one little thing you could leave us with, what would it be?
Never take no as your answer.
I've not had that one before. Never take no for an answer. I might go away and think about that myself. Yeah. I quite like coming off the back of the kind of being stubborn, keeping going, right? Being assertive. Never take no for an answer.
Because I was thinking if I had, it's scary to think where I'd be now, but if I'd listened to all those people that says you can't do that, it's scary to think where I would be, both physically and mentally.
That's quite profound, actually, isn't it? That kind of don't take no for an answer. I know a few people in my professional life, my home life, who I think actually, if they're listening to that, go on, go do that thing, keep pushing forward, don't take no for an answer. Because what's the worst that can happen, right? we just ask, and sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. But I always think a nice question in the therapy that I do, if you're looking back over your life, are you going to regret the fact that you tried some stuff, even if it didn't work out? And most people aren't. And I think that's lovely. Chrissie, it's been so amazing having you on. As with most guests, people tend to come back again. I've got a head full of other things that I could also talk to you about off the back of this episode as well. I haven't covered disability nearly as much as I'd like, so I'm going to name and shame one of my colleagues now who promised he would come on and talk about learning disability in series 1, and we're on series 9 and he's still not on. So if he's listening to this, I want to cover it more. So I want to get you back on and we'll talk about, I've got a couple of ideas of things that would work, because I do want to bring disability into this podcast much more. He's going to be really cross now because I've shamed him on my podcast saying you still haven't come on and spoken about it. Thank you so much for coming on, Chrissie. And let's stay in touch and go find counsellingwithchrissie.co.uk. Go and find her book. You have to look inside the therapy room, which is on all major places. Go and find it on Amazon. It's really accessible because it's on audiobooks as well, isn't it?